Welcome to the first video in our series on the book of Romans. In this series, we're going to walk through the entire book of Romans chapter by chapter and verse by verse. So if you'd like to join me on this journey through the amazing book of Romans, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an upload. Also, feel free to leave any comments or questions down below, because at the end of each video, I will do my best to answer all of your questions. Alright, with that said, let's dive into the text. We'll begin with Romans chapter 7 verse 1. So chapter 7 verse 1, the first word is do, which is an imperative, it's a command, and it says, do you not know? And this is Paul saying to the church at Rome, to these believers, don't you know? Don't you understand? And he's going to say, do unto you know that the law has authority over someone only as long as that person lives? Now when we think about the law, what do we mean by that? Well, there are two different types of laws that are being talked about in the Bible. You have the ceremonial law, and then you have the moral law. The ceremonial law had to do with things like animal sacrifices, things like the Passover, things like unleavened bread, things like the feast, the holy days, the Sabbath. All of those were ceremonial laws that pointed forward to Christ. They had a specific day, they had a specific way, they had a specific thing that had to be done. And if it wasn't done that way, then it was basically worthless. Then you also had the moral law, which were things like, do not murder, do not steal, do not lie, do not commit adultery. These were things that were right and wrong, good and bad, just like we have laws today in our culture. So Paul's going to talk about both of those. But really when he says the law, he's referring to the moral law here in Romans 7, because the ceremonial law was done away with when Christ died on the cross. And so if you were circumcised, or if you weren't circumcised, it didn't matter. If you kept the Passover or if you didn't keep the Passover, it didn't matter. Those things were done away with. But the moral law, those things are still in place today. And so Paul is going to talk about that. He says, don't you know that the law has authority over a person only as long as that person lives? Now who does the law apply to? Well, it applies to everyone who knows the law. And Paul says, I am writing to those who know the law. He says, you are under the law. I am under the law. Everyone is under the law who knows the law, who has heard the law, who has been taught the law. And so the question is, how should we respond knowing that the law has authority over us while we live? Well, let's find out as we continue to walk through the book of Romans together. And if you've got a question or a comment, leave it down below and I'll see you next time.